Hello! Welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy the book, by Lacey Rice. The sun was shining brightly as I walked away from my mom, heading towards the elementary school doors. I couldn't help but smile to myself, a feeling of excitement and anticipation bubbling up within me. My carefully laid plans were finally falling into place. Just last fall, I graduated from high school, and the pressure to follow a traditional path to success had been overwhelming. My family had high hopes that I would enroll in college and pursue a career as a doctor, lawyer, or some other prestigious profession. They had expected me to embrace adulthood with open arms, just like any other teenager with potential. On the surface, I had faked excitement about going to college. I had secured some impressive scholarships, transitioned from part-time to full-time work, and outwardly conformed to what society expected of a young man my age. But deep down, I knew I wasn't ready for the real world. The idea of leaving the safety and comfort of my family's home had always terrified me. However, that fear began to change when a chance encounter occurred at a thrift store. I had been perusing the shelves, contemplating whether to buy a Stephen King novel when I stumbled upon a peculiar book. It was a small, thin black volume with the words "Potions for Everything You Need" embossed on the cover. The idea that a single book could provide everything I needed seemed absurd. I picked up the book and, out of curiosity, opened the front cover. To my surprise, the pages that were supposed to contain instructions were all blank. At first, I chuckled at the notion that such a slim volume could hold such power. I debated putting the book back on the shelf, dismissing it as an oddity. But then, something inexplicable happened. It was as if the book itself pleaded with me to buy it. A strange, almost otherworldly urge compelled me to keep it. Shrugging off the unusual sensation, I added the book to my shopping basket, filled with various thrift store finds, and headed to the checkout. By the time I returned to my small apartment, the strange book had nearly slipped from my mind. I unpacked my belongings, and it wasn't until I reached the bottom of the bag that I rediscovered it. I picked up the book once more, and as I opened it, I noticed something that hadn't been there before, a note written on what had previously been a blank page. "I know what you want, but there will be a price. Make this recipe, and I will make your life better." I stared at the enigmatic message, reading it repeatedly as a sense of curiosity and intrigue consumed me. What did the note mean? Who had written it, and how did they know what I wanted? As I turned the page, my eyes fell upon the recipe, and with it, the promise of change, adventure, and, perhaps, the opportunity to reshape my future. With a mixture of fascination and skepticism, I scanned the recipe in the mysterious book. The page was filled with a list of ingredients and detailed instructions, but the ingredients themselves were unlike anything I had ever encountered. There were herbs and spices I couldn't even pronounce, and some ingredients seemed entirely otherworldly. Despite the bizarre nature of the recipe, I couldn't shake the feeling that this book held something extraordinary. The note had mentioned that following the recipe would come at a price, but it left me with more questions than answers. What kind of price? And what did the writer mean by making my life better? The allure of the unknown was too strong to resist, and curiosity drove me to try the recipe. I decided to gather the ingredients, one by one, carefully following the instructions as if I were concocting some ancient potion. The process was both mystifying and mesmerizing, and I couldn't help but wonder who had authored this book and why it had found its way into my hands. As I mixed the final ingredient into the potion, a strange sensation washed over me. It was as if the very air in the room had changed, and I felt the shift in the energy around me. The liquid in the container took on an otherworldly glow, and I couldn't deny that a part of me was afraid of what I had just created. With a deep breath, I steeled myself and took a small sip of the potion. Instantly, a surge of warmth and power coursed through my veins, and I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. It was as if I had been living in a fog, and now, everything was crystal clear. I then fell forward. I looked down and saw that I was shrinking. My clothes started to get too big for me as I realized that I was starting to become younger somehow. Panic surged through me as I continued to shrink. It was as though time itself was unraveling, pulling me backward into a different version of myself. I watched in disbelief as my surroundings grew larger, towering over me like a forest of colossal trees. The apartment, once familiar and cozy, now felt like a cavernous maze. I stumbled and fell onto the book that had caused this inexplicable transformation. My hands, now child-sized, clutched it tightly. I desperately flipped through its pages, searching for answers, but the text swirled and danced before my eyes, making no sense at all. What was the price that the book warned me of? Was it my age it warned me of? To my relief, my clothes started to shrink with me. But they were not becoming smaller versions of my clothes. Instead, my shirt and jeans started to fuse together. My jeans legs started to mash together to make what looked like a skirt. The skirt quickly changed colors to a light blue in the now skirt, and my t-shirt quickly changed into a dress. My heart stopped when I realized what was happening. I was becoming a little girl. My heart raced as I stared down at my transformed body, now that of a young girl. The surreal nature of the situation was overwhelming, and fear crept in alongside the bewilderment. What kind of price had I truly paid for this newfound power? The answer became painfully clear. Struggling to come to terms with my new reality, I took to my surroundings. The apartment, once a modest haven for an adult, was now an imposing landscape filled with towering furniture and unreachable shelves. I felt vulnerable and lost, like a child in a giant's world. As I looked down at the book that had triggered this transformation, a sense of anger and betrayal welled up within me. It had promised to make my life better, but instead, it had stripped away my adulthood, my independence, and my identity. With a mixture of determination and fear, I clutched the book in my tiny hands and began to flip through its pages once more. Perhaps there was a way to reverse this transformation, to undo the effects of the potion and regain my former self. But the pages remained elusive, shifting and changing before my eyes, as if mocking my attempts to find a solution. It was as if the book had a mind of its own, a malevolent intent that extended beyond its initial promise. I knew I couldn't stay in my apartment in this childlike state. I needed to find answers, to discover if there was any way to reverse the transformation, and to confront the enigmatic forces behind this mysterious book. With newfound determination, I made my way toward the apartment door, my small feet echoing in the vastness of the room. As I stepped out into the hallway, a world that had once been familiar now felt alien and intimidating. I was a child again, but my mind still held the memories and knowledge of an adult. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, and filled with questions that demanded answers. I was no longer the person I had been just moments ago, and the road to reclaiming my true self would be a perilous one. But I was determined to face the challenges that lay ahead, to uncover the secrets of the mysterious book, and to find a way to reverse the irreversible. I made my way to my bedroom and found that it had changed too. It was now decorated in pink pastel furniture. My bedroom had transformed into a sea of pink pastels and stuffed animals. The once familiar room now felt like a foreign land, an unsettling reminder of my altered reality. I couldn't deny that a part of me longed for the comfort of my previous life, for the familiarity of my adult world. But I knew that dwelling on the past wouldn't help me find a way out of this predicament. I had to adapt, to embrace the challenges that lay ahead, and to navigate this new world as the child I had become. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, I explored my transformed bedroom. There were toys and books scattered about, and I couldn't help but notice a shelf filled with children's literature. It was as if this room had been prepared for my arrival, a puzzling detail that only deepened the mystery surrounding the book and the potion. As I pondered my next steps, a sense of determination welled up within me. I couldn't allow fear and confusion to hold me back. I had to confront the unknown and search for answers. And to do that, I needed to leave the confines of my apartment. I carefully selected a few children's books from the shelf and placed them in a small backpack that I had found. It was a peculiar experience, as I had never carried a backpack so tiny before. With the bag slung over my shoulder, I took a deep breath and stepped out into the hallway. The world outside my apartment door was vast and imposing, but I had no choice but to venture forth. I had to find someone who could help me understand what had happened and, hopefully, find a way to reverse the strange transformation. With each small step down the hallway, I felt a mix of apprehension and determination. The world outside my apartment door was unknown and full of challenges, but I had to find a way to reverse the transformation that had turned me into a child. Going to my mom's house seemed like the most logical step. I clutched a tiny backpack filled with children's books as I made my way towards the building's exit. The hallway seemed immense, and the doorknob was almost out of my reach. With some effort, I managed to open the door and step into the hallway of the apartment complex. The outside world was a different place now. Everything seemed so much larger and more intimidating than I remember. Each step was a struggle, and I had to rely on my determination to keep moving forward. As I walked through the complex towards the parking lot, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vulnerability. I was just a child in this world, and I needed help. The sun beat down on me, and I squinted up at the towering buildings, trying to find my bearings. The journey to my mom's house was a daunting one. It was a significant distance to cover, and I had no idea how she would react to seeing me in this childlike state. But I had to try. I needed answers, and she was the one person who might be able to help me. I trudged along the sidewalk, each step feeling like a monumental effort. The world around me seemed so big and unfamiliar. People passed by, oblivious to my plight, and I couldn't help but wonder if anyone would believe my story. After what felt like an eternity, I finally arrived at my mom's house. It was a modest suburban home, and I gazed up at it with a mix of hope and trepidation. I knew that my life had taken a bizarre and inexplicable turn, but I had to face whatever lay ahead. Summoning my courage, I approached the front door and knocked timidly. I waited anxiously, my small fists rapping against the wood. What would my mom's reaction be when she saw her adult child transformed into a little girl? Would she even recognize me? The door creaked open, revealing my mom's familiar face. She looked down at me with a puzzled expression, her eyes widening in disbelief. For a moment, there was silence, as if time itself had frozen. Then, in a trembling voice, I spoke, "Mom, it's me. I know this is hard to believe, but it's really me. Something strange happened, and I need your help." My mom's eyes filled with tears as she slowly began to understand the impossible truth before her. "You can't be my son, you are just a little girl," my mother said. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked up at my mother, her disbelief and confusion mirroring my own sense of incredulity. I understood how impossible it must be for her to accept what she was seeing. After all, I had been an adult son just moments ago, and now I stood before her as a child. "Mom, I know this is hard to believe, but it's really me," I repeated, my voice quivering with a mix of fear and desperation. "Something happened, something with that book and a potion. I need your help to figure this out." My mother's expression softened, and she slowly bent down to examine me more closely. She reached out and gently touched my face, as if to confirm that I was real. "This is unbelievable," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and uncertainty. I nodded, my heart pounding with a million questions and emotions. "I don't know how or why it happened, but I'm still me, Mom. I need to find a way to reverse this, to become an adult again." My mother pulled me into a tender embrace, holding me close as if to reassure herself that I was indeed her child. "We'll figure this out together," she said, her voice filled with determination. "But first, we need to understand what happened. Tell me everything, from the moment you found that book." As I recounted the strange and unbelievable events that had led me to this moment, my mother listened attentively. Her face shifted between disbelief, concern, and empathy as she absorbed the details of my bizarre journey. When I finished my story, my mother looked thoughtful. "It's clear that this book and the potion it contained are at the center of this mystery. We should start by examining the book more closely and trying to decipher any clues it might hold." Together, we made our way to my former apartment, the towering furniture and child-sized belongings a constant reminder of my transformed state. The book still lay on the floor where I had left it, and I picked it up, opening it once more to the page that contained the enigmatic recipe. My mother examined the book carefully, her fingers tracing over the embossed words on the cover. "Potions for everything you need," she read aloud. "It's as if this book is some sort of magical grimoire." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the blank page where the mysterious note had appeared. "And this note," I said, pointing to the words written on the previously blank page, it mentioned a price. It said that making the recipe would make my life better, but at what cost? "Could it be the cost of you being male?" Mom asked. The idea that the transformation might be related to my gender had crossed my mind as well. It was a possibility that I couldn't ignore, given the inexplicable nature of the book and the potion. I nodded slowly, my mind racing with thoughts. "It's possible," I admitted, my voice filled with uncertainty. The note did mention a price, but it was so vague. "We need to decipher this recipe and understand what each ingredient represents. Maybe that will give us a clue about the price I paid and how to reverse it." With determination, we turned our attention back to the book and the recipe. We meticulously went over the ingredients, researching the unfamiliar ones and trying to make sense of the cryptic instructions. The book's pages seemed to come to life as we delved deeper into its mysteries, revealing hidden symbols and meanings. Mom made me some chocolate milk as she made herself some coffee as we pored over the book, our shared determination to solve this enigma pushing us forward. We knew that the answers were within our grasp, and we couldn't rest until we uncovered the truth and found a way to reverse the irreversible. As we continued our quest, the possibility that my gender was at the heart of the transformation weighed heavily on my mind. If that was indeed the case, what did it mean for my future? Could I ever reclaim my former self, or was I destined to remain a child? "So, what do I do now?" I asked. "Well," she said looking at me, "until we can figure this out, you may have become my daughter for a little while." My mother's words hung in the air, and I couldn't help but feel a mixture of emotions. Becoming her daughter, even temporarily, was a reality I hadn't anticipated. But given the circumstances, it seemed like the most practical and comforting option. I nodded, trying to accept the idea that I would need to adapt to this new life as her daughter. "I understand, Mom. I just hope we can find a way to reverse this and get my old life back," she smiled warmly, her maternal instincts taking over. "We'll do everything we can to figure this out, sweetie. In the meantime, let's make the best of this situation. You can stay with me, and we'll start by getting you settled into your new life." Mom took me back to my apartment. Once there I looked around for anything that was once mine for me to take with me back to Mom's place. But all I could find was girls' clothes and girls' stuff. Mom was the one who found it. It was a small school ID just like the one that I had back when I was in high school. The picture on it looked just like the new me. Next to the picture is the student's name. And the name Skylar Boland was written on it. The discovery of the school ID sent a shiver down my spine. It was undeniable evidence that I had not only physically transformed into a young girl but had also taken on a new identity. I couldn't help but stare at the ID, feeling a profound sense of disconnection from the life I once knew. My mother watched me closely, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. She reached out and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It looks like you've become Skylar Boland," she said softly. "For now, we'll have to work with the life you've been given. We'll figure this out together." I nodded, still grappling with the enormity of the situation. It was a strange feeling to see my old identity encapsulated in that ID card, a reminder of the person I used to be. We collected everything we could take in our car and then Mom ordered a moving crew to take the rest of girly stuff from my apartment to her house. As my mother and I drove to her house with the belongings we had gathered, I couldn't help but reflect on the surreal turn my life had taken. The journey that began with a chance encounter at a thrift store had led to a transformation I could never have imagined. Now, I was Skylar Boland, a young girl, and my mother's daughter. Arriving at my mother's house, I was met with the unfamiliar sight of a girl's room. It was adorned with pink pastels and stuffed animals, a stark contrast to the adult life I had known just a short while ago. My mother had made an effort to make the room as comfortable and welcoming as possible for her newly transformed child. With my mother's guidance, I settled into my new life as Skylar. She provided me with clothes, toys, and other essentials to help me adapt to my altered reality. It was a strange mix of nostalgia from my previous life and the challenge of embracing this new identity. Over the coming days and weeks, my mother and I continued to research the mysterious book and its recipe. We consulted experts, delved into ancient texts, and even sought out individuals with knowledge of the supernatural. But the answers remained elusive, and the book seemed to resist our attempts to unlock its secrets. Then the first day of school came. I was now enrolled in school as a first grader. The first day of school as a first grader was a surreal experience. I found myself in a classroom filled with children who were my age, both physically and mentally. It was a stark contrast to the world I had known as an adult just a short while ago. My mother had helped me prepare for this day, selecting a backpack and outfit that matched those of the other first graders. As I walked into the classroom, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and excitement. Would the other children accept me as one of their own? Could I blend in and navigate the challenges of elementary school? The teacher, Mrs. Anderson, greeted me warmly and introduced me to the class. "Class, this is our new student, Skylar," she announced. "Let's all make her feel welcome." I offered a shy smile and took my seat, feeling the curious gazes of my classmates upon me. It was clear that I was an anomaly, but for the time being, I had to play the role of a first grader named Skylar. As the school day progressed, I tried my best to fit in and adapt to my new identity. I participated in class activities, made new friends, and did my best to learn the material at a first grade level. It was a humbling experience, one that required me to put aside the knowledge and skills of my former adult self. In the evenings, my mother and I continued our research into the mysterious book and potion. We reached out to experts in the field of magic and alchemy, hoping that someone could shed light on the nature of the transformation and how to reverse it. Weeks turned into months, and life as Skylar became my new normal. I attended school, made friends, and even celebrated my birthday as a child. It was a bittersweet experience, knowing that the life I had once known was out of reach. Despite our efforts, the book remained an enigma, and the potion's effects seemed irreversible. It was a frustrating and disheartening journey, but my mother and I refused to give up. One evening, as we combed through the book once more, my mother made a discovery. She found a passage hidden within the pages, written in a language that neither of us recognized. It was a breakthrough, a clue that there was more to the book than met the eye. With renewed determination, we began the arduous task of deciphering the mysterious text. We enlisted the help of linguistic experts and historians, hoping that the translation would provide the answers we desperately sought. As the translation efforts continued, I couldn't help but wonder about the true nature of the book and the forces that had brought it into my life. What had motivated the writer to create such a potion, and why had I been chosen as its unwitting recipient? These questions weighed heavily on my mind, driving me to uncover the truth. Months turned into a year, and the translated text finally revealed the book's origins. It was an ancient grimoire, said to be the work of a reclusive alchemist from centuries past. The book contained instructions for a wide range of magical potions, each with its own set of ingredients and effects. According to the translated text, the potion I had consumed was known as the Potion of Youthful Transformation. It was indeed designed to make one's life better by granting them a second chance at youth. However, the price for this transformation was steep and irreversible, the loss of one's former identity. With this newfound knowledge, my mother and I faced a difficult decision. Did we continue our quest to reverse the transformation, knowing the risks and challenges it entailed, or did we accept my new life as Skylar Bolin and embrace the opportunities it presented? Ultimately, the choice was mine to make. But one thing was clear, no matter what path I chose, my mother would be there by my side, supporting me every step of the way. Together, we would navigate the mysteries of the book, the complexities of the potion, and the challenges of a life transformed.